And good evening. I'm Jonathan Higgins,
I'm Rich Carlson.
and we are the Scanner Guys. Good evening to everyone joining us. I see all the check ins there. Welcome to the show from Virginia to Rhode Island to um, all over the place, really,
Yeah.
Rich.
Massachusetts, Canada. Yeah, they're all over.
So,
Illinois.
welcome to the show. We're going to be talking about aviation tonight, and we're going to be answering a lot of your questions regarding aviation. So, this should be an interesting show. What to listen to when you're at the airport, what to listen to when you're at home. Um, as much as we do a train aficionado show every other week, a lot of people do listen to aviation and photograph that as well. So, should be an interesting show. If you're joining us for the first time, let us know in the comments. We would love to see your comments there as always, and keep them rolling in. And if you're on social media right now, make sure you share the link to this broadcast
Yeah,
with some of your friends and family. Increase the amount of views.
yeah, and subscribers. Make sure you hit that subscribe button.
Yes, very important that you do. So let's get right into the slideshow presentation, shall we? So
Yeah,
tonight we're aviation programming and monitoring for this March of 2022. The Scanner Guys are brought to you by viewers like you. Thank you for supporting the show by shopping the merch store on our website, thescannerguyshow.com, and ordering products through our affiliate link down below in the description. And a special thanks to tonight's broadcast partner, which is Scanner Master. Shop them online at 24/7 at scannermaster.com. And make sure you visit our website, of course, to shop our merch store and to sign up for our newsletter. You can do that by visiting thescannerguyshow.com. We have all types of things there: t-shirts, coffee mug, tote bag, face mask, hoodies, you name it. It's on our store. And as Rich mentioned earlier, make sure you follow, like, and subscribe to the social media that we have, especially on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button and check us out on all of the social media platforms at The Scanner Guys. And check out the website, thescannerguysshow.com. All right, Rich, here is the rundown for tonight's show. We're going to be talking about aviation at home, monitoring it, also at the airport, programming tips, and the key channels to program. So this is all going to be good stuff. If you're just getting into aviation, Rich is going to go through this through the slideshow presentation, giving you tips and tricks to all these things that you should know for programming aviation. All right, Rich, take it away.
all righty. So, first off, we're going to start talking about listening to aircraft and such from home. So, if you're listening to aircraft at home, obviously you've got a scanner or some sort of a receiver. But the one of the most important things you can have is an antenna. So the better antenna you've got, the more stuff you're going to be able to hear, and the further away you're going to be able to hear it from. So the other thing to remember is that an aircraft that's in the air is going to be able to be heard a lot further away than you're going to be able to hear an aircraft on the ground or a control tower or a ground controller. Elevation is your friend, and that's why you see antennas are way up on towers, on mountaintops, on big tall buildings, et cetera, et cetera. So the higher you go, the further that signal gets out. And that applies to both the civil aviation band and the military aviation band. And when we talk about these bands, they are very similar, just that the numbers are different. But on the civil aviation band, the two-way communications are typically from 118 to 138. And on a military aircraft band, those communications can be anywhere from 225 to 380. There is another part of the civil aviation band, the 108 to 118 section, but that's used mostly for things like beacons and AWAS stations, not typically for two-way communications. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on. So, what are our favorite scanners that we're going to use to listen to aviation? Well, first off, we can't go 5 minutes into a show and not mention the 125 AT. This is a great little aviation scanner. It works great. It's small. It works really well on aviation, works on military aircraft and on the civilian aviation band. It is really a great scanner for listening to aviation. My favorite desktop or mobile scanner used for aviation is the BCT 15X. It does everything the 125 does a few other things, but it really is a great aviation scanner, and especially since the price on it is really low compared to a lot of other scanners. And same thing with the 125. It's a good basic scanner at a great price. And to be truthful with you, though, any scanner that you have will almost always work fine for at least the civil aviation band. Almost every scanner ever made in the last 20 years works just fine in the civil aviation band, and most of them work well on the military aircraft band. So if you're into military aircraft, make sure the scanner you have works on that. If you're going to go out and buy one, these are the first two I would look at. How you can increase the range of your monitoring. You want to hear something a little further away than you can right now. The best bet is to increase the efficiency of your antenna. The easiest way to do that often is to make the antenna higher than it is. So if your antenna is in your office, put it in the attic. If your antenna is in the attic, put it on the roof. If it's already on the roof, add another 10 feet to the elevation if you can. Put a bigger mast on it, put on a tower or something. The higher you can put your antenna, the better it's going to work almost every time. So an attic antenna works better than one on the back of the set. A roof antenna works better than the attic one, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The type of antenna you have will also make a difference. Disc cones are great on aviation channels, especially on military aircraft, because of the wideband characteristics. But other wideband scanner antennas usually work really well too. I've got a couple ST2s in my attic. I've got a skyband antenna. I've got a diamond disc cone. They all work really well in aviation. The actual antenna you have is usually less important than the elevation you can get it. So the higher, the better. And if you're going to be listening to aviation at the airport, there are a few things to remember. First off, be discreet. Don't be walking around a busy airport with a radio blasting out of out. Use an earphone. It's perfectly legal to listen to airline and airplane communications just about anywhere you are, but just be discreet. It's first off, you don't want to bother people that are around you. You don't want to call undue attention to yourself. If you're in a public area, you're usually fine. Use a set of earbuds or an earphone or something. It just makes life a lot easier on everything. Obviously, don't trespass. Most airports have a place where you can sit down and watch the airplanes and watch the operations at the airport. A parking lot. Some airports will actually have a viewing area. Deer Valley Airport on north part of Phoenix has a raised deck on top of the terminal building where not only do they have tables and umbrellas and a pergola to keep you out of the sun, they have diagrams of the airport, and they even have speakers so that you can listen to the two tower frequencies and the ground control frequency. And they invite anybody to go up there. You can spend as much time as you want to get a great view of the airport. And this picture was actually taken from the observation deck. A lot of airports have these. If they don't have one of these, often there'll be a parking lot, the top floor of a parking garage, any place where the public is allowed to be. You can go there to watch aircraft and bring your scanner with you. Again, if it's a viewing area, having the scanner, that's fine, no problem. You can listen to it. You don't even have to worry too much about earphones. But if you're in the walking through the terminal or something like that, use earphones so you don't bother people. Close call. I love close call. It's a great way to find frequencies if you don't know what the local frequencies are, especially if you're at an airport. So, if you don't know what the frequencies are, there are places to find them, but you can often find frequencies that aren't published using close call. Since you're going to be very close to the action, chances are, if you can see the aircraft, you'll be able to hear it on close call. So know how to use the close call feature and and use it. On this particular instance, I was at an air show and I picked up this frequency, and it turns out it was the spotters for the air show. And I was listening to this, and on this frequency, the spotter was saying, "Okay, we're going to go for this act next, and you've got 3 minutes for that act to start." So it really worked out great, and I would have had no idea about this frequency if I wasn't using close call. You can use the search function, but since you've got a huge amount of spectrum to go through, the search function might be a little less effective. And you got a lot of frequencies to cover with the search. So close call is usually a better way of doing it. You're going to probably, with close call, get hits on the ATIS channel and the AWOS channels. AWOS stands for Automatic Weather Observation Station, and ATIS is the Automatic Terminal Information System. They basically do the same thing, but different types of airports. They give information to airmen about the airport, the weather, the active runways, and other information that they need, but they transmit continuously. So if you get a close call hit on that, you're going to have to lock that channel out so that the scanner can start looking for new frequencies. So be aware of those. And if you don't know the frequencies, we'll tell you how you can find them. The next thing you're going to need to know is the terminology. There's a lot of lingo going on in aviation listening. Most of it you can usually figure out either by context or just by understanding what they're talking. Air traffic control is almost always done in English all over the world, even in non-English speaking countries. That is a standard that has been agreed to by almost all countries in the world, so that if you go to France or you go to Germany or you go to South Africa, wherever you are, they are going to be using English in air traffic control. About the only time they aren't is if they know that that aircraft is not going international. I've been to different countries where they speak Spanish, and you'll hear the tower talking to an aircraft in Spanish, but then the next aircraft will come in and he's talking in English. The tower will transition instantly to English and talk to that guy in English. So on all international flights, it's always done in English. Occasionally, you might hear some other language in certain countries, but obviously here in the U.S., it's all English. One of our listeners had a question earlier, and he said he heard the tower call an aircraft, and he said, "Call your base," and he was trying to figure out what that meant. And that is pretty simple. It's usually telling the aircraft to contact his company office. So it could have been an airline at an airfield. It could have been a training academy at a smaller airport. It could have been some sort of business aircraft. But basically, call your base means call your office. There's another possibility for call your base, and that's if the air traffic controller is talking to an aircraft in the air, he might say, "I will call your base." And if that was what the tower was saying, that means he's going to tell the aircraft when to turn onto the base leg of the pattern. Aircraft operate in a circular pattern in a lot of airports, and they have and there are certain names for different parts of the pattern. So when you are going to land, if you're going to land to the north, you're going to come to the airport to the south, and you're going to go around and turn different legs, and the last leg is the base leg. And he will say, call your base. That means the tower is going to tell the aircraft when to turn onto the base leg of the pattern. So again, a lot of it all depends on the context. There's a lot of other terms and acronyms, and we'll talk about that in a little bit too. So these are common aviation radio channel names. So each of these are the names for a specific channel that may be used in or around the airport or even off the airport. Things like ATIS. Almost any airport that has a control tower is going to have an ATIS channel, an automatic terminal identification service. And basically, it's a recorded message on a loop, and it will tell the active runways, the local weather conditions. There might be an obstruction. Runway 24 is closed. There is a crane 4 miles north of the airport. 50 degrees off the runway. Whatever type of situations are going on, they would put that information out on the ATIS channel. It's a continuously transmitting channel, and those messages are done on a loop. And what they'll do is the first message is always going to be the A message, and they'll use an acronym for A. I think it's in aviation, it's going to be like Alpha, and it'll say, Milwaukee Airport Information Alpha, and that message will be put out. They'll put the information out, and the pilot will have to tell the tower operator that he has information Alpha. And if that's not the current information, the tower will tell him, go back to the ATIS. We're now on Bravo. And they'll go back to listen to the ATIS channel, listen to the updated message, information Bravo. And then he'll go back to the tower and say, yeah, I have information Bravo. And then the next message will be Charlie and Delta, et cetera, et cetera. And each message, new message of the day, will get the next letter in line, and then they'll just go back. It's unlikely that you're going to be having two A messages in the same time period. That would be confusing. The tower channel is the most popular channel for monitors to want to listen to, because that's the channel that the control tower is going to be telling aircraft, you're clear to land, you're clear to take off, you're clear to cross the runway, and et cetera. That's the action channel. The ground control channel, that's used to move aircraft around the airport. When they get to the runway, they switch them over to the tower channel. The clearance channel, or the clearance delivery channel, that's used to provide flight plan information to the aviators, to the airmen. Sometimes they do that on the ground channel. Sometimes they do that on a totally separate channel. Depends on how busy the airport is at that particular time. The center channel, that is used by the air route traffic control centers, which are the centers that are controlling airplanes that are going from point A to point B to point C. So if you get on an airplane in Los Angeles and you're flying to New York, you're going to go to Los Angeles Center, Albuquerque Center. The next one I think is Amarillo, Chicago, Cleveland. You're going to go, there's about 30 of these throughout the U.S. and Canada, and they have a name of a large city within that particular location in that section of the country, and they have basically operators sitting in a dark room with a bunch of radar scopes and computers, and they have responsibility for a specific section of the country, and they control the airspace above a certain level, and any aircraft transiting that airspace has to contact that center, and then that center will tell them, okay, go to this frequency, turn left, head this direction, go to this speed. And then when they get towards the edge of the center, they'll say, okay, switch over to Chicago Center on 133.2. They'll tell them what frequency to go to and who to talk to on that channel. The approach channel is used to guide airports that are coming into an airport. So as a center will tell an aircraft to go to the approach channel when they're getting close to the airport that they're going to land at. Conversely, when the tower operator has cleared an airplane to take off, he'll tell them to go to departure on such and such a frequency. They'll talk to the departure controller. who will then hand them off to a center controller. We talked about the AWOS channel, the weather observation system. Those are for smaller airports that don't have control towers, and basically it's a recorded loop for the local weather system, the local weather observations. GUARD, or the emergency channel, which is 121.5 or 243.0 for the military guys, is the channel that is used for emergencies. They used to put EOT, not EOTs, but ELTs, emergency landing transmitters, on that frequency. They've now been moved off to a new channel, but the GUARD channel is used for emergencies. If you don't know what center channel you're supposed to be on, sometimes they'll use the GUARD channel because you didn't call on the right channel and they're trying to get a hold of you. And that's the one channel that everybody is supposed to have and be able to communicate on. It's like channel 19 for the aviation people. The VORs, those are beacons that transmit a message, and they provide a station, a geographical fix. So they know that the VOR is at a specific location, and the electronics in your airplane can tell you what VOR you're listening to and the direction that VOR is compared to what your airplane is. So if your airplane is here and the VOR is here, it'll tell you, and it'll point to the VOR so that you know that you're heading this heading compared to that particular VOR. ILS, the Instrument Landing Service system, those have directional beacons that will transmit a radio message in a very directional pattern, so that it will help the aircraft know that he is too high, too low, too far to the right, too far to the left. Flight service stations, those are information stations that will help an aircraft transiting an area that isn't being controlled. Those are not nearly as used anymore. They may even be long gone now. It's been a long time since I've heard of flight service station. A lot of that stuff is now done on the internet. A Unicom channel is a utility channel that is used for just about any purpose. Most commonly, they are used at a small airport to allow airplanes to talk to each other because there's no control tower. And that goes hand in hand with the CTAF, the Common Traffic Advisory Frequency. If there's no control tower, it's usually on a Unicom channel. If there is a control tower, sometimes that control tower will close at night, and that becomes the CTAF. Multicom is very similar to a Unicom. It can be used for multiple purposes, and a lot of times Unicom, CTAF, and multicom terminology all gets kind of mixed in together. These are the channels that everybody should have in their scanner if you're interested in aviation listening. First off, 121.5 and 243.0. Those are the important channels everybody's got to have. If there's something big going on, you'll be able to hear about it on those channels. And if there's something going on in that channel, chances are you want to hear it. A lot of times it could be just routine things. American 123, on guard. My center radio is out, or they're trying to call American 123 because they're not answering on the appropriate channel. They will try them on the guard channel. 123.025 is a very common channel used by helicopters. There's a lot of good chit chat going on between helicopters. Media helicopters and police helicopters will often talk to each other on that channel. If there's a big thing going on, there's 2 or 3 media choppers going on, they will pop on that channel and talk to each other, and they'll coordinate their spins around the incident so that they don't hit each other. Oftentimes they'll coordinate things where they can share video because one guy's got to go and refuel, so they'll let the channel 2 chopper's got to go get gas, so they'll channel 5 chopper will share the video so the channel 2 guy can go get gas. even though they're working for competitors, it's a very small fraternity. They know each other, they take care of each other, and they'll do that type of stuff. And then 122.95 is a very common channel. Any airport that has a control tower has that assigned to it for a Unicom channel. So you can use that. You can call in on that channel. Oftentimes, especially at these airports where there's a lot of business planes coming in, business jets, they'll use that channel to arrange for a rental car or a limousine or fuel and such. Yes, these are for USAUs. There are different channels used in Canada, except for the first two. Those are worldwide. But in Canada and other countries, there might be other channels. But most of our viewers are in the U.S., so that's what we'll have that. So look at your local charts for your local tower and ground channels, and we're going to talk about that next. These are FAA charts. So these are for two very different airports. The first chart, the one in the middle of the screen, is for a small little one runway airport in Glendale, Arizona. And there's runway 119, and it's basically north-south. One runway, a control tower, there's a ground operator, and oftentimes the control tower and the ground operator is the same guy, just two different channels, or they'll tell them, hey, just stay on this one channel. It's a small airport. It's busy enough to have a control tower, but not so busy as to have multiple runways. And it's very simple. It's got a runway. It's got a couple radio channels and some information. Then you look over at O'Hare Airport. O'Hare Airport is the busiest airport in the world when it comes to movements, depending on what year. Sometimes it's Atlanta, sometimes it's O'Hare. Even though Atlanta has more people going through it, O'Hare usually has more airplane movements, takeoffs and landings. It's got more runways than any other airport in the country. It's got 8 runways, and it is just chock full of information. Every runway has got information about it. There's 100 radio channels listed on that chart. It is just a chock full of information. Every taxiway is listed there. All the runways are listed there. And these charts are a great wealth of information. It tells you how long the runways are, how wide the runways are, what directions the runways point, and the numbers that they are assigned, and that's all based on the direction that they point. It tells you what the elevation not only of the field is, but of the end of the runways. It tells you what radio channels are used for what. On airports with a lot of runways like O'Hare, they may have a control tower and a ground channel for each runway, or a couple runways might share a channel. It might be multiple tower channels. You get something like O'Hare, it's crazy. There's no way you can listen to all the activity at O'Hare by listening to one channel. You got to listen to a whole boatload of channels. It's just crazy. And you got 100 airplanes arriving in and out of there every hour. It's crazy. You might have 100 airplanes a day coming into Glendale, and you'll have 100 runways an hour coming into O'Hare. It can be really crazy. But these charts are public information. You can download them off the internet on the FAA's website, or you can go to AirNav's website and download them. Tons of great information. If you're going to spend any time in an airport, get the chart. Every airport, large and small, that is registered to the FAA will also be included in what's called the Airport Facility Directory, or the AFD. Small airports that don't have a control tower usually won't have a chart, but they'll have this type of information. So this is a little tiny airport down in southern Arizona. It doesn't have a control tower. It's got a dirt runway, and it's got a paved runway. You can buy gas there. There's somebody there all the time. Got to watch out for wildlife in or around in the vicinity of the airport. You can buy gasoline, but you got to have a credit card to do it. There is a radio channel used there. There's some navigation aids there. Sometimes they'll have a phone number listed so that you can call somebody. And you get a real busy airport, and you'll maybe a whole bunch of different information about it. But every runway or every airport that's registered with the FAA is going to have some listing in the airport facility directory, and you can get it from the FAA's website. And that, my friend, is that.
Very good. Very interesting. So let's go through some slides and then we'll get to your questions. Rich, if you go to the starred column and get warmed up on those. As always, thank you for watching the Scanner Guys. Tonight's presentation was Aviation and Monitoring for March of 2022. As always, we are brought to you by viewers like you. For shopping our merch store at the scannerguyshow.com. And as always, using our affiliate link down below for Scanner Master. We get a little percentage of that sale when you use that affiliate link. And as always, we want to thank Scanner Master for being tonight's sponsor of our show. Train Aficionado Live will be back on Wednesday, April the 6th of 2022, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. Follow, like, and subscribe to the Train Aficionado social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. And then check out the website. We've got a lot of good blog posts that are coming up each and every Monday. We've got a good one coming up this Monday. I'm trying to remember what I wrote about, but I don't remember what it is at the moment. But yeah, really good blog posts coming up. So definitely check that out. It'll come to me in a second.
Yeah.
And don't forget to join us next month for Wednesday, April the 13th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific, where we're going to be talking about scanners again. We're going to be talking about the Uniden Siren app, which doesn't get a lot of attention, so we're going to bring some attention to that. If you own the Uniden Bearcat BC the Uniden Bearcat BCD 536 HP, you're definitely going to want to watch this show because we're going to talk about the Siren app and that dongle. So if you ever wondered what the heck is this dongle for, definitely tune in. We're going to tell you all about it. So that should be a good show. So definitely tune in. And as always, we're at the midway point of the show. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure you do that now. You're right on YouTube, so make sure you do that. And make sure you follow, like, and subscribe to all of our other social media as well. We're on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. Follow us at The Scanner Guys. And check out the website, thescannerguyshow.com. All right, Rich, what do we got for questions tonight?
All right, let's start off with this one here. James asks, how come some scanners can hear better on the VHF band than they do on the UHF band, the military band? And basically, there's actually some pretty good reasons for that. The first off is that scanners have been dealing with the civil aviation band, the 118 to 137 or 138 band, much longer than they've included the UHF, the 225 to 400 band. And so the circuits are tuned specifically for that. Also, it has a lot to do with the antenna. The 118, the civil aviation band, is a smaller swath of spectrum, and the antenna that comes with the scanner is typically kind of a compromise between size and length, and they happen to work better on the civil aviation band typically than they do on UHF. There are some scanners that work particularly well on the UHF military aircraft band. The Pro 2004, 5, and 6 series had a reputation of being superb on the military aircraft band, probably better than they were on the civil aviation band. So sometimes it's the scanner, sometimes it's the antenna, or it could be a little bit of both. Gordon, who I spoke to today on the phone, asked, how do you program startup keys on the SDS 200? Jonathan, you want to take this one?
Startup
I
keys.
hate startup keys.
Yeah, we did a whole show on startup keys. Take a look at our YouTube channel. Um, I don't remember the full instructions because, just like Rich, I don't use the
Yeah.
startup keys. But we did a whole show going over it. We actually spent literally a whole show doing it. So
Yeah.
definitely look for that. Um, Joe M, which is in our audience tonight. He's a super fan of startup keys and such. So um, I'm sure Joe will chime in
Yeah.
about that.
And for those wondering about it, startup keys basically are, you can hold a button on the scanner as you're turning it on, and it'll set it up the way you want to. The manual will tell you how to start those up and how to set that stuff up, but I'm not a big fan of startup keys. It just doesn't. I just don't use them. Same thing with quick keys. I just don't use them in my regular scanning. I just basically use a different scanner for everything.
Yeah, yeah, it's totally, it's user preference. I mean, it
Yeah.
depends on how you set up your scanner. I could tell you that I've used some of the keys for important channels, like if
Hmm.
because of the old school radios, used to know that that channel 12 was such and such. So if you just hit the manual button or the hold button and type in 1 2 and then hit the manual hold button, it would bring you right to the channel. There is a feature like that for these quick keys that you can do in there. We did cover that during that show as well. So
Yeah.
definitely watch that show because we're going to go over it in depth. So definitely do that.
And
Continuing on with our questions as well.
yeah, and quickly on this one, Dan says that they're great for using if you're in two totally different locations. So if I'm in Phoenix, I can set up a startup key for Phoenix. Then when I go to Cincinnati, I can set up a new one for that. So, all righty. So on the 380 to 400 segment, that used to be part of the military aviation band. They have started to move most of the traffic that was on there off, and are using it mostly for Air Force base and military base P-25 trunking systems. But occasionally, there's still some aviation traffic still on the 380 to 400 band. Most of that stuff has been taken out, but every once in a while you'll get an airplane or guys using those channels because they have them, and they may have been a channel that they used to use and they're continuing to. But again, most of that stuff is are being used at bases these days. What's the best rubber ducky antenna for airband? Bob's using his telescoping, and now he wants to use a rubber duck.
Yeah, so the 901, which you've seen multiple people, I think in this broadcast, have talked about
Yeah.
it. I've included a link that's up in the chat when this was asked. I'm not too sure, Robert, if you were able to see that link. But yeah, the 901 is one of the best aviation antennas it's for rubber duck antennas, that
Yeah.
is.
And they are in stock at Scannermaster right now.
Yeah, at the time of this broadcast. They
Yeah.
may not be at the end of this broadcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, the 901, there's not many in stock right
Yeah, there's
now.
only a few. So get it now.
Yes.
All right. Chris asks how come he can hear Cleveland Center and Chicago Center from his area in Lansing, Michigan. How's
I'll
that
take a
work?
guess.
Go ahead.
There's multiple transmit sites.
You betcha. So the Chicago Center and the Cleveland Center handle a big, wide area, and it could be a couple hundred miles from north to south and east to west. Big area of the country. And then there's several of them around the country, and they're kind of put together like a jigsaw puzzle. Well, there's no way you're going to be able to cover that huge of an area with one tower. So they put towers all over the place, and there could be 100 towers in that 1,000 square miles of territory that is covered by the Cleveland Center. And so there might be a tower in Detroit and one down in Lansing and one in Mason County, and there could be a bunch in Ohio and some in Indiana and all over the place. So Chicago Center and Cleveland Center, will have access to all these towers, usually by microwave or these days by some sort of internet connection, a way for the operator who's sitting in a office in the Chicago center. The office is in Aurora, which is 75 miles west of Chicago. Cleveland Center, I don't know where the actual facility is. It could be almost anywhere in the Cleveland area, or doesn't even be Cleveland. I mean, it could be Atlanta for these days, for all it matters.
I mean, it's the same as the railroads. I mean, railroads used to be dispatched locally. I mean, so if you take Norfolk Southern, they're in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And dispatchers are used on various lines. So I've heard dispatchers here in Cincinnati that were down in the Charlotte area. They're working multiple desks. The same thing with CSX is in was it Jacksonville, Florida. I mean, Rich, you're absolutely right. They could be anywhere, essentially.
Yeah. I don't know, 10 or 12 years ago, there was a fire in the office in the Chicago Air Traffic Control Center out in suburban Chicago, out in Aurora, and they relocated those guys to a different facility while they were making repairs to that office. So the Chicago Center doesn't have to be in Chicago. They could be almost anywhere, and they're all connected by microwave and fiber and all these different things to all the radio towers scattered all throughout the area. So in the Chicago Center, they got a radio tower in Wheaton. They've got one in Horicon, Wisconsin. They got them in Dubuque, Iowa. These radio towers are all over the place. So James says that Las Vegas has got a spotter spot. That's a great one. And I've been there many times. Every time I go to Vegas, I always go to the spot. It's right alongside the runway. There's a parking lot you can pull in. They rebroadcast the tower channels over at FM radio, so you can listen to it in your car. It's a great spot, and there's always cars parked out there.
Rich, tell us about that feed that you watch on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Oh, there is a guy in the Chicago area who it's called the Curious Spotter. So if you look him up on YouTube, it's called the Curious Spotter, and he goes out to O'Hare Airport. Although he'd go to Midway earlier this week, but normally he goes out to O'Hare on Tuesdays and Thursdays with a high definition camera and a cellular connection for data, and he is broadcasting live video of airplanes going in out of the airport. It's a great channel, and it's live. So rain or snow, he's out there. So look up the Curious Spotter on YouTube, and he's got a great channel. And there are several airports that have live feeds as well. And there are a couple other people who do these things where they'll go out there. But a lot of airports will have these viewing places. Milwaukee's got a great one on the north side of the airport. Las Vegas has got a great one on the east side of the airport. Los Angeles has got a world famous In-N-Out Burger restaurant which overlooks the airport, which is in kind of a valley. And you sit in the restaurant parking lot and watch the airplanes and eat lunch, and it's great. Some airports have St. Louis has got another one where you can sit in your car and watch airplanes. Other airports have a patio like the one at Deer Valley, and some of them have unofficial viewing areas. But yeah, there's a lot of great spots to watch airplanes at a lot of airports. Norwood, Massachusetts has got a great little airport, and it's great for monitoring and viewing from the comfort of a car. So a lot of small airports will have a couple of great spots where you can watch airplanes. Pewaukee, Chicagoland Executive Airport in Chicago area has got a great spot where you can watch the stuff. Norwood, I assume that's suburban Boston.
Yes.
Joe mentions that the AWAS channel we talked about earlier can be a great test frequency if you're listening, if you're near an airport. They're usually not real strong, and they're not too weak. And he's right. Typically, they're going to be 5 or 10 watt transmitters on a little ground plane antenna, maybe on the top of a building. So all they need to be able to do is to cover the airport, and for airplanes, 25 or 30 miles out, be able to hear it. So they don't need to be transmitting really far. They're not going to have a 100-foot tower on it. It's a great way to test your scanner and to see how well your scanner is working. So find out what the AWAS channel or the ATIS channel is at your local airport and see how well your scanner is working. 118 to 137 is still most active at 25 kilohertz steps. I don't know of any use of the newer 8.33 kilohertz channels in the US. Those are most commonly used in Europe, which is a much more dense area, so they need more channels. I don't know if they're using any of the 8.33 kilohertz spacing in the US, although most scanners these days have that. They're not using that in the US, or if they are, it's not very common. I've never come across it. But yeah, the 25 kilohertz channel spacing in the US is what we're using here. Charles likes to listen to aircraft, not just on a scanner, but he's also got a Yaesu ham rig. Yeah, but he doesn't understand all the jargon. So a lot of this stuff you can figure out by context. And otherwise, there's a lot of websites out there that'll tell you what that terminology means. So if you're not sure what it is, look on the internet. I'm sure somebody will have it explained for you. The ATIS message that the airspace is closed during the Air Force One movement. Air Force One, of course, is the president's airplane. It's whatever Air Force aircraft that the president happens to be on at the time. And if he's on a Marine Corps aircraft, then it's Marine One. If he's on a Coast Guard airplane, it'll be Coast Guard One. When you hear Air Force One, which is the most common, that is something special to listen to. I mean, that's the president of the United States. Whether you like the man or not, he's still the president. And if you've ever had a chance to see Air Force One, it is really cool. I've seen it many times. I was actually out at O'Hare Airport once, sitting in a parking lot watching airplanes, and then things got really quiet, and I really wasn't paying that close of attention. I didn't, things got kind of quiet, so I started playing with my phone a little bit, and all of a sudden I look up, I see an airplane come by, and it was Air Force One. And I was just like, that's why things got quiet, because they close operations down for, I think it's 20 minutes or half an hour before and after Air Force One takes off and lands, so that he gets the airport to himself for a while. Steve says he checks the local ATIS channel before he leaves for work. It's better than the local news. So yeah, if you want to find out what the what the weather and conditions are like, the ATIS channels are actually a good source for that. Going to the railroad channels, John said he probably programmed all 97 railroad channels in his 536 and wasted all the time because it was only programmed one channel. Well, I've done that many times, John, so I'm sure that there's something not quite right happening. So it should work. I mean, I've got a couple 536s in my cabinet over here, and I do have them set up with the railroad channels, and they work great. So I'm not quite sure what happened, but if you double check on it, I'm sure you'll figure it out, because it shouldn't be too hard. Quincy asks, should he use the priority feature on the guard channels? That's not a bad thing. Remember, when you turn on priority, your scanner is going to stop every 2 seconds and check the priority channel. So if you're actually listening to a communication, it's going to cut out for a second, check the priority channel, and go back to it every 2 seconds. So it could be annoying, but that is a great use for the priority channel in your radio. So we talked earlier about the 380 to 400 band. That used to be assigned to military aircraft, and now it's assigned, the official assignment is for military base operations. And there's a nationwide P-25 trunking system that's used by the military at Air Force and other military bases all throughout the country. And most of the traffic on that frequency range are these P-25 trunking systems. There are only a few operations where they're still using it for aviation purposes. And any place where they're doing that, it's unofficial because they're not supposed to be, but it happens. 399 has got test flights, and sometimes they use air to air. So yeah, that was a kind of a reference back to the 380 to 400 range. Again, those frequencies are still included in the radios, so they're still going to be using, even though just technically they're not supposed to be. Any activity on the military frequencies if you're nowhere near a military base? Yes. You don't have to actually be near a base to hear activity, because they're going to use the military aircraft band for air traffic control of military aircraft that are transient, that are flying between A and B. So let's say you're 500 miles from the nearest Air Force base. There might still be military aircraft in an air route, going overhead. So they would use the military channels for that. Most center towers will have not only a civilian frequency, but a paired military frequency. So let's say Chicago Center is using 133.9 at the Dubuque Tower. There will also be a military frequency paired with that. And when the when the Chicago Center operator talks on the VHF channel at the Dubuque Tower, he will also be transmitting on the military channel at the same time. And if it's a military aircraft, he'll talk back on the UHF side, and the civilian aircraft will talk on the VHF side. So yeah, you can hear that. Also, there might be refueling operations. Depending on where you are in the country, you can usually find the maps for the refueling tracks, and oftentimes they are hundreds of miles away from the nearest base. So yeah, there's always going to be military traffic, even if you're not anywhere near a base. Joe Bearcat's in the house. To answer your question earlier about the 380 to 400, is supposed to be reallocated trunking system, so it's dropped from mil-air. So yeah, technically it was reassigned from air traffic control operations for military to land mobile for military, but there's still use one way or the other. So, you might still want to listen to some of the frequencies there and lock out the base channels if you're not interested in that. When programming a P25 system, the system has 4 separate sites. Do you have to make up a new site each time, or you can program the channels all together? Depends on the scanner. On a Uniden P25 scanner, you typically will program in 4 separate sites. So if there's a site in Mayberry, one in Mount Pilot, one in Cincinnati, and one in Covington, you're going to program those 4 sites separately, because they're all going to share a group of talk groups. If you've got a Whistler Radio Shack JRE scanner, you put all the control channels into the system all together, and the radio will find the currently active channel, and when it falls to a certain level, it will look at the other channels and see if there's a better control channel. So it kind of does that kind of automatically. So there's pluses and minuses to both ways of doing it. Like I said, if you got a Uniden scanner, you're going to program individual sites. And here is a question that comes up all the time. Can you use your scanner on a commercial aircraft? It depends. Most often, probably not. The airline has the authority to say what you can and cannot do on their airplane. So most airlines do not allow you to use a scanner on board the aircraft. So if they have such a rule, typically it's going to be on the in-flight magazine, or it's going to be on the airline's website. I fly American quite often, and they do not allow scanners, and it says so right in their in-flight magazine, which you can usually find it on their website. Sometimes you'll get, if you ask the flight attendant or even the pilot, they might say, yeah, sure, fine, go ahead, but use earphones. If they allow you to do it, that's fine. If they don't allow it, don't do it. they have basically God rights on the airplane. So if they say you can't do it, you can't do it. Even if the airline rules allow it, the flight attendant or the pilot can override that and say, no, you can't. So there's no right to listen to a radio on the aircraft. That's all at the discretion of the airline and the pilot and flight attendants. On an SDS 100, if you create a favorites list from Sentinel, does it transfer the GPS data? It should, as far as I know. I'm not sure. Jonathan, have you tried that?
So you're creating a favorites list? Yes. It'll definitely transfer the GPS data. The thing you have to keep in mind, under that favorites list, you need to turn on GPS scanning with that favorites list. There's going to be an option under that favorites list to turn that on. If you don't turn that on, it's going to scan it as the whole list. That's how I use the scanner in my vehicle. I have the 536. I have it set to a favorites list, and then I have GPS scanning. So, yes, definitely. The other thing, too, if you're using like a third-party software such as Butel, and you're creating favorites list there, and you're doing some custom GPS programming, make sure when you do save the favorites list that you have GPS scanning enabled. If you don't have it enabled, it's not going to work. It's basically going to scan everything. I mean, I do have some lists that actually don't have the GPS on. Like I've created a railroad service search, which I don't want it to have GPS on that. I want it to be able to just run. Even my railroad favorites lists don't have GPS on it. As Rich will contest, railroads do not, fit into that lovely format of a city or town with a circle around it, to be able to do that type of scanning. Railroads basically can be over hundreds of miles on the same road channel.
And in my area, I have a 536 in my vehicle as well, and I have the public safety frequencies programmed into it for Arizona. And the problem is some of our counties are much too large. So I actually have to program them in a couple times. We have some counties that are bigger than medium-sized states. The county I live in is like, the size of Massachusetts or bigger. And, so it's much too large to use location control for the entire county. So I have to separate it into north, west, and south parts of the county. In smaller counties, in the Midwest or in the East, where your counties are relatively compact, basically you would program it with a center point and a range, and usually that's going to work just fine.
Yeah, the other thing too is on radio reference. When I was living in the Charlotte area, they had all the frequencies for the police department for Charlotte, the city of Charlotte, all into one grouping on radio reference. So that all shares one latitude and longitude. What I ended up doing, so when I enter in the Charlotte area, I'm not hearing every precinct or every area. I basically broke down all the precincts and areas, put a latitude, longitude in each one of them. It took a long time. Put a latitude, longitude in each one and small radiuses on it. So when I was in the northern part of Charlotte, I wasn't hearing radio transmissions in the southern part. So basically, it was working as if, each one of these precincts were its own city and town. So the great thing about it is with GPS scanning, which I'm a huge component of, it certainly makes it a lot easier. I mean, I remember the days where you were traveling, you had bank 1 is one area, bank 2 is something else, bank 3, and you were constantly, reaching over, turning off banks, because you would get to a point where reception was really, your antenna was great on the roof, but it got to a point where you were beyond the fringe of the signal and you were just hearing static.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you do it right and you spend a little extra time on that on your favorites lists, you can really tailor your listening much more so than what you're going to get off the radio reference database. So, a lot of that stuff is really good, but it's not perfect, and you can sometimes make it a lot better.
Yeah. Just by changing, maybe a GPS center point that comes in through ready reference, or even a radius.
Yeah.
You may find that, they misjudged it. Maybe a city or town is really long, so you may want to increase the range, or for
Mhm.
whatever reason, you can hear your city or town, your hometown,
Yep.
10 miles away because they get a really good repeater, but it actually shuts off 5 miles away. You can always change that as well. So a lot of customization you can do.
Absolutely. All right. Les says that the Toronto airport, I think it's called Pearson, if I recall correctly, they have a viewing spot now. And basically, it's to stop people from parking on the side of the road. And the highway patrol out there found it to be too dangerous. So that is a good reason to have a viewing area. People like to be able to see the airport, and it allows you to corral them into a safe area to watch the airport instead of perhaps parking alongside the road, uh, and to view the airport. That's why that was a specific reason why they built the one in Milwaukee, because they had a lot of people parking on the side of the road. So they built the parking lot, got them off the side of the road, and put them in an area where it's much more safe to do so. Let's see here. We got a couple new comments here. Let me go down to the bottom here.
I'm just starring them right now, Rich. So
Oh, yeah. Okay.
they
All right.
should
I'll go back
appear in
there.
your.
So let's see here. Oh, there you go. So Nigel says that while you're on the subject, air show season is coming up. You betcha. So if you're into air shows, summertime is a great time for air shows. Bring your scanner. Most air shows is if they're at a public airport, not a problem. Occasionally, if you're at an air show that's actually on base at a military facility, they may or may not allow you to bring a scanner in. Make sure you check with them first. Usually, it'll be on the air show website. If it's on base, I know we have an Air Force base down here, and when they have their air shows, they don't allow scanners, but on the base. But if it's a public airport, that's not a problem. But if it's on a military base, that might be an issue. Oh, look at this! Interesting, interesting, interesting. So, Joe Bearcat, who is the official Uniden representative, there is a new model. Not a replacement. It's something new. This is going to be fun.
Yeah.
So,
So that should be interesting. Hopefully, when and if that's released, it'll be announced here first.
yep,
Since Joe Bearcat seems like an avid watcher of the show.
absolutely. So he also mentions that it's coming and not yet, not a firm release date or even a loose one. So, yep. And he's asked recently for a time as recently. So uh, the actual release date is not available, and once that date is available to him, he'll make the information available to us so that we can let our watchers know. So let's see here, what else. The SDS 500, I don't know. I think an SDS 500 would replace the 200, so I wouldn't imagine that would be it.
5,000. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a question that Jim's been asking, and we've been asking him as well.
Mhm.
When will Joe Bearcat be on the show? Um,
He has an open invitation.
yeah, he certainly does, and we're always looking for guests on the show as well. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, we if you have any good ideas for guests, let us know. We're always open to suggestions, and where there's Joe is certainly one of our targets, and but we're also we've had quite a few guests, and we've had a lot of fun with our guests, and we don't take ourselves too seriously. We hopefully they won't take themselves too seriously either.
Can you
So,
see what the birthday boy has said here?
yeah. So there is a difference in terminology: aeronautical mobile or aeromobile. So, and maritime mobile versus marine mobile. So there is some technical terminology about that. For the most part, though, when you say aeronautical mobile, the plane is over international waters. If not, the proper term is aeromobile. The same thing with boats. Maritime is in international waters, and marine mobile is in domestic waters. Either way, you're not going to be, chastised too badly. Why do some of the airband channels have open carriers and no voice? They could be birdies, and if you don't know what a birdie is, no, a birdie on a scanner is a frequency typically that the scanner is receiving that's generated within the scanner itself. Most scanners work by actually mixing a couple frequencies together to come up with a third frequency. And sometimes the electronics used to accomplish that will cause unintended frequencies to be heard by that scanner. The way you can normally tell if it's a birdie versus outside interference is if you take off the antenna and you can still hear it, it's a good chance it's a birdie. And if the interference comes on when you put the antenna on, chances are it's something in the area that's doing it. I had an issue which I thought was a birdie coming up on a railroad channel here at my house. And when I disconnected the antenna, it went away. So I realized it wasn't the birdie, it was something local. And I found out it was one of those magnetic chargers for my cell phone. And that went back to the store because I can't have that. So magnetic chargers, computer routers, all kinds of electronic devices can cause noise. I have my old drink refrigerator would cause noise on railroad channels. I don't know why railroad channels seem to be such a magnet for this type of interference, but I got rid of that drink cooler and got a new one. So we're going to be the first to know. Yep.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, we're looking forward to that. Yeah, we're certainly looking for more guests as always, so we're hopefully looking forward to that. Is there any?
Yeah.
I think we covered all of the questions and comments.
You know what? Randy asked about GPS on conventional. Yeah, you can use location controlled scanning on conventional channels or trunking.
Yeah, basically, it's married to the grouping of frequencies.
Yeah.
If we look at systems and groups, so essentially, you can have GPS programmed onto a system and right down to the group level as well. The other thing, if you're doing trunking, you can have the GPS programmed into a group of talk groups, and you can also have GPS programming programmed for sites. So, you can have each site will have its own GPS latitude and longitude. So as you migrate away from a certain tower, other towers will turn on. And of course, the same thing when you have your talk groups grouped together, they will turn on and off as you travel as well.
Yeah. And you can certainly do those with conventional systems as well. When you program the conventional, it could be railroad, it could be aircraft, it could be police or fire. It doesn't have to be a trunking system for location control. You would just do it on that particular group within your conventional system. So,
yeah, I mean, that comes in handy for especially if you're from Massachusetts or in the Northeast, where each city and town is its own input thing in radio reference. That'll become its own group in the scanner. There is certain parts of the database you have to be careful of. There was a whole slew of counties up in Maine. When the database was set up, they set up latitude and longitude, center point for the county, and then a huge radius. And they duplicated that information throughout every city and town. That has been changed. I actually did some work on that and changed that so it would be basically, if you were in that city or town, it would have a center point in that town and then a radius around that town, because it doesn't make any sense with GPS scanning. If you're in the western part of the county, you should be just scanning those particular cities or towns, unless you increase your overall range on the scanner to a larger bubble. But if you're doing like a 1 mile or 0 mile, it should be picking up right where you're at. And that's the other thing too. You want to make sure that your setting on the GPS range on the scanner is down to 0 or 1 mile, so it'll have that tight distance.
We've done entire shows about location-based scanning. So go back to some of our older shows, and we have spent the entire show, at least on 2 of them that I'm aware of, that I recall, based on how GPS works. So yeah, it's a fascinating subject, and it's a great feature for the scanners. So I think that's where we're at, my friend.
Yeah, so definitely tune in. We'll be back live Wednesday, April the 6th with Train Aficionado Live, so make sure you tune in. Then we will be off next Wednesday, but we'll be back the following Wednesday. So those of you that watch the Chicago shows on NBC, you won't have to do 2 things at once, if it is not a repeat, that is. Let me just review some of our programming notes. So let's put that right up on the slideshow right here. Train Aficionado Live will be back, a live broadcast Wednesday, April the 6th, 2022, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. Follow, like, and subscribe to our social media as well, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram and Twitter at Train Aficionado. And make sure you hit the subscribe button on that as well. Make sure you join us the following week, Wednesday, April the 13th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time. We're going to be talking about the Uniden Siren app. Doesn't get a lot of attention, but this is pertaining to one of the radios that both Rich and I have, which is the Uniden Bearcat BC 536 HP. We're going to be talking about that dongle that comes with it, so we're looking forward to that, and go from there. And if you are a Roku or Apple TV user, make sure you download the YouTube app, because you can watch both the Train Aficionado Live shows and the Scanner Guys shows on the big screen TV. Make sure you follow, like, and subscribe to our social media as well, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram at The Scanner Guys. And check out the website, thescannerguyshow.com. We also just wanted to let you know there's several new blog entries on Train Aficionado's website, so trainaficionado.com. The latest one was coming up this week. We're talking about the history of a railroad line that really had an interesting story traveling through. Wait a minute, that's the abandoned one I did. Sorry, the one that's coming up this week, I've done so many blog entries in the last, is we're talking about a possible new intercity line that will run through Ohio, basically connecting the 3 largest cities, and they all begin with the letter C. Chicago,
Cleveland, Cincinnati, and Columbus, right?
Columbus, yes. Yes, that's right. So the 3 C's. So basically using Norfolk Southern and CSX tracks. Matter of fact, there used to be a train that did exactly that way back in history. So I'm going to look at, on the Monday blog entry, is going to talk about that. Also going to talk about where these intercity type of train services worked and where it's kind of failed. So we're going to talk about all that in the blog entry coming up on this Monday. So make sure you check out trainaficionado.com Monday, probably Monday morning. I'll post that up and be able to check that out. And of course, take a look at all of our recent blog entries as well. Would you guys do a show on homemade indoor antennas? Okay, here's the thing with homemade indoor antennas. We need you guys to supply those photos, because Rich and I don't have a whole bunch of homemade antennas, but a lot of you may have it. And what I'm going to recommend doing is emailing photos and a brief description at our email address, thescannerguys@gmail.com. Thescannerguys@gmail.com.
Yeah,
We
if
would
we
love,
get enough pictures, we'll make a show out of it.
yeah, I mean, we would love to do that, but we need content for that show, and unfortunately, Rich and I are not with the soldering iron and creating these.
Yeah.
We need some input from you guys. As for Train Aficionado hats, we're currently working on that. We ran into some design issues, um, and we're hoping to have those hopefully relatively soon.
Yeah. All righty, my friend. I think we're good.
All right, let's wrap it up this evening. I want to thank everyone for joining us for our aviation talk. Next month, we'll have 2 more great Train Aficionado shows and 2 more Scanner Guys shows. So make sure you follow, like, and subscribe to our social media on both Train Aficionado and the Scanner Guys. I hope you have a great evening. I'm Jonathan Higgins.
I'm Rich Carlson.
And we'll talk to you again in a couple of weeks. Good night.